Welcome to Monarchist Minute, royalist news and discussion out of the good old US of A. Here with a perfectly calm Charles York, which is myself, Kaiser Bob, William Stout, and Aidan Halberg, our diplomat, and stuff.
Newly promoted.
Yes. Anyways,
Was it a promotion? It's more of a side grade.
I mean, it was. Sure. Let's not get into our politics because real people politics is so much more fun. And by the way, when I say real people, I mean that we are all actually artificial intelligences.
Wait, are you saying I'm not real? Oh man,
You're not real either. You're an artificial intelligence too. No one's told you that yet?
no.
Yeah.
We forgot to send him over the briefing packet.
Yeah, it's funny when you're not really a self-aware AI in the true sense. But anyways, we have 3 topics tonight. It's our last.
One, but anyways, for the day.
I already said it. Okay. I'm sorry. I already said that. But anyways, no. It's our last local history. Yeah, I know that was intentional, so it's okay. I intentionally ran over the old gentleman, so it's okay. I shouldn't be charged for manslaughter. Anyways.
3.
Okay.
Wait, what?
Long story. Okay. Reset, deep breath, calm. We have 3, count them. 1, 2, 3, unum. What's Latin for 2? Duo? Duo? And then... You think I'd be able to remember to count to 10? I took 2 years of Latin, even though we only covered that second year. Okay, we got 3 topics. Our last local history month for the year, hopefully next month will be more variety. We're going to be talking about a very sad incident in Ohio that the media didn't seem to care about. And then we're going to be talking about Lent, because this is the first episode we're doing in 2023 that is in Lent. Ash Wednesday was just 2 days ago for us at the time of recording. And 3, 4, 5 days ago at the time of uploading. I can do quick maths. So, with all that being said, am I okay? That's a difficult question. With all that being,
it's one that we ask every day.
Yeah, we're very self-concerned. We AIs are very concerned for each other. Anyways, that's why AIs don't like to beat each other in chess. That's probably not true.
Do I count that as 3.5 because there wasn't a but in there?
I mean, okay. So, at any rate, let's get into our first topic 3 minutes in. Oh, this is going to be a long one, even though there's only 3 topics, I can just tell. So, Local History Month, as always, because Kaiser Bob just likes to be the first. I don't know how his name appears
up here as the first person on the lineup, so I'm always the first one to go.
But the question is why? Because really it should be Aiden, myself, you, then Will, if it was going alphabetically, but...
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm not the one messing with the audience or the speaker roles, so...
It's not... trust me, if it was up to me, I would be first because I am Supreme Leader of podcast. At any rate...
It's because I have
we have a variation.
As my name, so that's probably why.
At any rate, Kaiser Bob, give us your title for this week.
Alright. So... I'm trying to think of a title for this, I'm sorry. We'll just call it Lincoln. We'll call it Lincoln. So tonight, to wrap up Local History Month for myself, I will be going over the iconic event that happened in my hometown of Ottawa, which was the first Lincoln-Douglas debate. Now, just to say right off the bat, to explain what was the point of these debates. This was during the Illinois Senate race, and Lincoln was the Whig candidate, and Douglas was the Democrat candidate. And they were trying to win over enough votes from the Illinois General Assembly to be elected, because this was before the U.S. government decided, you know what, we don't need a autocrat society. We'll just have the people decide who should be a senator. And look how that turned out in Pennsylvania. Back then, Ottawa was a very major city. It was supposed to be a major canal port, because they were working on the I&M Canal, but by the time they finished it, railroads became a thing, so there was no point for the canal, so that's why we haven't been on the map as of late. So Lincoln and Douglas decided to hold their first debate in Ottawa, in which Lincoln argued that popular sovereignty would nationalize and perpetuate slavery throughout the country. Douglas replied that both Whigs and the Democrats believed in popular sovereignty, and that the Compromise of 1850 was an example of this. The Compromise of 1850 was basically it basically allowed California to enter as a union, into the union as a free state, but it also strengthened the slave laws from the Fugitive Slave Act, and the territories that we got from the Mexican-American War would pretty much decide on their own whether or not they entered the Union as a slave or free state. Now, Lincoln replied, the national policy for the U.S. was to limit the spread of slavery, and then he brought up the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, which banned slavery from the Midwest. Now, just to wrap this up, because I don't want to take up the entire section for Local History Month, I'll just end this with a quote from Lincoln and the outcome of the debates as a whole. I hate indifference to slavery because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it derives our Republican example of its just influence in the world, enables the enemies of free institutions with plausibility to taunt us as hypocrites, causes the real friends of freedom to doubt our sincerity, and especially because it forces so many real good men amongst ourselves into an open war with the very fundamental principles of civil liberty, criticizing the Declaration of Independence, and insisting that there is no right principle of action but self-interest. And now the debates ended with Lincoln becoming the popular candidate. However, the delegates supported Douglas, and he ended up being Illinois senator. But the debates did help Lincoln become a national figure, and that helped him be nominated as the Republican candidate for the election of 1860. So, and that is the end of my section for Local History Month. Hopefully I don't have to do this again. I'm sorry, but apparently my mic got screwed up last time, so if you're hearing this and my mouth and my mic sounds a bit muted. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Now over to Charles.
Well, actually, this is a hard truth to tell, fellow Robot, but your mic always sounded quieter than everyone else's. Anyways, at any rate, moving on. Talking further, the my story is actually is just a Great Lakes region one, because it actually ties into Kaiser Bob's story. So the Irish were convinced to vote Democrat when they first showed up here in large droves. The Democrats, who were at the time a minority in New England, saw a bunch of Irish people coming over, and they thought, "Ooh, that's cash money, fam." So that's why the Democrats have a strong Irish affinity, and then eventually the French Canadians came in, and they were convinced to vote Republican, and so they started hating each other as opposed to focusing on the fact that they were both Catholics in a nation full of Protestants. But I digress. So the story is particularly a bunch of people came up to support Stephen Douglas in a debate against Lincoln. I can't remember if this was the presidential election or or the senatorial election. I assume it'd be the presidential, but I can't remember the year. I don't know the year actually. But sad thing about Stephen Douglas in the presidential election, he took second place for votes, uh, but he only carried 2 states, so that's kind of that was kind of sad for him. Uh, so the schooner, or not the schooner, the steamer that would be carrying all of these fine fellows and families back to where whence they came was the Lady Elgin, and there's a really beautiful song from Lee Murdoch. Well, it's not from Lee Murdoch. It's a pre-existing song, but Lee Murdoch does a great rendition of the song about the ship. So I'm going to be spoiling it for you, but you should just go and listen to the song. The ship was full of all of these women, men, women, and children. But there was a storm the night the ship was going. Only 100 miles of water was the noble steamer's goal. And sorry, I got distracted. Whew, I'm not doing too good tonight. And there was a schooner that rammed into the ship accidentally because no one could see anything, and the ship went down, of course, and that's sort of a tragic story on its own. But the captain, he performed his job valiantly because he was leading songs and prayers for every woman, man, and child. And then there was a man who lived along the shore, who actually, what was it, 16 times he went into those waters, and he pulled people out. Um, yeah, it's the song itself hits a lot better than I could. So I'll put a link to it in the description. Um, but yeah, Lee Murdoch, great. He's a great Great Lakes folk singer. He also does a song on the Illinois and Michigan Canal, which I don't know if he wrote that or he just does a rendition of it. But yeah, that's also a pretty good song. Both of which were on the first album of his I bought. But anyway, at any rate, Will, uh, do you have
Sure.
another local Ohio history story, or are you just gonna defer until?
Well, since we're on the topic of the Civil War, and we seem to be following that topic, how about we talk about the time that Ohioans basically carried the Union through the entire conflict? Looking at my boys, Sherman and Grant, and how basically they carried the entire Union officer corps in command through the entirety of the war, because McClellan was basically useless. Other than that, I don't got anything. It just happened to be that since we were talking about the Civil War.
I mean, I'm McClellan had a had a folk song written about him that portrayed him in a good light, so he couldn't have been all of that bad, even though his strategy was overwhelming numbers. I can just retreat. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I retract that statement. I'm not going to. I mean, I haven't delved too deeply into the guy, so I'm not going to judge. I mean, I know the popular perception of him is he had like a 3-to-1 advantage or whatever, and he's like, eh.
Cowardice is cowardice. I don't care who you are.
Well, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I think it was maybe. I mean, like I said, I haven't read that much into the man's motivations, but maybe he was like, I don't want to get the people, because he wasn't in any personal danger. You know, I mean, it was just it was all the rank and file soldiers who were getting who were going to get killed. So that's I don't know. You see, that's why I could probably never be a general, because I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it, sort of thing. So and that's why if we ever had the first monarchist penal battalion, I should just be just make me a private, because let
We'll
someone
just
else
make
be
you
the
we'll just make you the drummer boy.
yeah. I'm sure that's a viable position on the modern battlefield. Also, I can't really keep rhythm, but.
Drummer boy, a viable position on the modern battlefield. Hey, you see that geek down there with the drums? Yeah, shoot him first.
I'm the bullet sponge.
Don't
uh,
worry, we'll give you some grade 4 body armor. You'll just soak it up.
and Comrade Hobbs, he's going to be our commissar since he's our ideologist. He's going to be our political commissar, telling us to charge forward for the fatherland. Even if I do think we should unironically start using the term. So, to
I'm
carry
sorry.
on forthwith.
When you say commissar, I just can't help but think of Hobbs trying to shoot one of us for cowardice.
The man with the drums, the man with the drumsticks beats the enemy. The man without the drumsticks follows. When the man with the drumsticks is killed, the man without the drumstick picks up the drumstick and beats. Okay. Okay. Carrying on forthwith, Aiden, what is your Alaska story?
Alaska is a very interesting case, being such a large state with so few people. But the story that I'm bringing to you today comes from when it was vastly less populated. So, in about 1795, there's a British trading ship that was sailing around the region of southeast Alaska and what's now British Columbia in Canada. And it came across a native Alaskan village, a Haida village specifically, which is the native tribe I actually belong to, funnily enough. In 1795, this trading ship went to this village to trade furs, and at some point, the captain of the vessel believed that some members of his crew had been killed by members of the village. So the survivors of this alleged attack immediately put out to sea and began firing their cannons at the village, only to find that the village had cannons of their own and fired right back at them. The Haida were famous for having captured several vessels, including the Eleonora and the Susan Sturgis. And from these captured vessels, they would actually strip off the cannons, be them swivel guns or proper cannons themselves from 18th century vessels, and would repurpose them for the defense of their own villages. In fact, the Haida were quite practiced warriors on the sea. It used to be that we would take these giant rings of stone and we would tie ropes to them and we would throw them, kind of like harpoons at enemy vessels, with the intent to break through the bottom of their canoes and then haul the rope back to use the stone again. It's pretty interesting.
I actually watched a video about the Haida earlier today, and they were described to me as Native American Vikings, basically.
That's it. Yes, there's an argument to be made about geographical determinism leading to very similar lifestyles. there's certainly some element of truth to the Haida being very accomplished raiders, but whereas the Vikings would come home and feast and celebrate and lord over their accomplishments with one another, Haida culture was very centered around, and still is to this day, very centered around giving. It is more exemplary of one's display of wealth to give something away than to hoard it for oneself in our culture. So, like, if you were to host a feast, it was expected that you give away. That was the point of the potlatch. You would give away stuff, and the more you gave away, the more prestigious you would appear to be. So the greatest of our chiefs were, in truth, the people who had given away the most to others. Be that in the form of furs or blankets or hats. In fact, traditionally, when you make something, you aren't even supposed to make it for yourself. You're supposed to make it for someone else. So,
That's
for
actually
example,
very.
I've woven a lot of headbands and hats and made moccasins and whatnot. But for those purposes, I can't use those things myself, so I have to give them away to someone else.
What happens when you're just so much better at doing it than everyone else?
Then you
Then you
make the things for everyone else, and you make do with something that's made by someone else for your own use.
No, that's I kind of like that actually. That very charitable. Um. Oh, is that? Wait, is that Haida the same Haida as like the ship HMS HMC H wait HC wait yeah
I think it's.
HCMS Haida was named after?
It's possible.
Because I
Let's
because
see,
I did
tribal
know.
class destroyer. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would have been named after my people.
okay, because yeah, I did know the Canadians. I mean, we did that too, but that was mainly with I think that was just with tugs because we did have a pretty firm naming convention. You know,
Oh, we also
destroyers.
had like the Chinook class helicopters, and then the Cherokees,
Oh,
Apache.
oh
Apache.
yeah.
We have some naming conventions based off of tribal groups. Another interesting fact about Alaska that my grandfather told me is that the Tlingit language and the Navajo language are very, very close to each other. So close that the two could probably understand each other if they both spoke in their respective languages to each other.
That's interesting to think about given the massive geographic difference in area they live in.
Yes, it's also interesting to think about because the Japanese were invading Alaska during World War II, and we were using Navajo code talkers at the time.
Yeah.
So had the Japanese figured that out, they could have had a way to
To
break the
break US
Navajo
codes.
code. Yeah.
Well, first of all, they would have had to, one, get closer to Alaska, or get further into Alaska than they actually did in history by actually a pretty significant amount.
Yeah,
And then,
didn't
two, they would have
have
had to
like
put
3
two and two
islands
together to
on
realize,
there?
hey, these people are talking very similar to the languages
Right.
that are
And
being
the
used here.
Aleutian Island campaigns are such a forgotten part of the
The
history
war.
of World War II, but they're also such a hilarious part of the history of World War II. Just
The
because one, the
there's nothing
actual
hilarious about the Aleut evacuation.
Oh yeah, what about
well,
that time when we
okay, the
actually
only
fought the Canadians during it?
yeah, okay, yeah, that's the one hilarious part I was referring to. When we showed up to the last island to chase off the Japanese, and it turned out they already left, so the only thing that happened was a blue on blue incident with the Canadians.
Yeah.
Thank God no
Well,
one got killed
during that war, the U.S. government was evacuating the native Aleuts from the Aleutian Islands specifically. I believe like 1 in 10 Aleuts died under U.S. care because they weren't given adequate medicine or food, and they
Oh,
were
that's
basically kept in what was the equivalent of basically the equivalent of internment camps, really. Um,
horrific.
That's
yeah, they were also kept in Southeast Alaska when they were from Southwest Alaska. So they went from this very, I don't want to say flat because it was actually very rocky, but they went from basically their hilly grasslands that they were used to on the Aleutian Islands to the temperate rainforest that is Southeast Alaska. And if not for the care of the Tlingit people, they would not have turned out. They would not have had so many of their people survive. And most of those who died were the elderly, who were also those who remembered anything about their culture.
You know,
Was it just like, oh, we got to get these people out, but they were completely ignorant of how to take care of them, or what was
It
going
was,
on
oh, we
there?
got to take these people out, but then the camp commanders decided to hoard resources for themselves and their troops instead of giving it to the people it was meant for. Furthermore, the soldiers that were garrisoned in the Aleutian Islands were often garrisoned in these villages that had just been forcibly evacuated, and some of them decided to keep souvenirs. So thousands of cultural artifacts are still missing to this day from those places, including such things like Orthodox iconography from churches that were looted by American soldiers, but also just generally native artifacts as well, not just
who
religious
robbed the
ones.
church?
American
Like-
soldiers, apparently.
Yeah, Protestant American soldiers.
Yeah, that's not nice.
And when was the last time you were taught about the Aleut evacuation in school? Because most people weren't.
we just
I
talked
mean,
about the internment
usually-
camps of the Japanese. That was
Yeah,
about
I
where
was
we
already
got.
saying. Usually, we hear more about the internment of the Japanese, which
I-
was equally messed up in its own right.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
I mean, I think the only time the only thing the Aleutian Islands ever make an appearance in any textbook I remember is that, furthest extent of Japanese occupation, and then it shows that nice little ring.
I-
The Pacific War is fun because you have to draw all
Mhm.
your maps, most of your maps over water, so that's kind of fun to
I
basically have these
remember.
nice swervy
I
lines.
can't remember if the gentleman was a veteran or if he was a historian, but he said the proper punishment for the Japanese invading the Aleutian Islands would have been just to leave them there to freeze to death.
That's kind
he
of
wasn't
rude.
wrong.
His exact words were they could have eaten maggots for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they would have been perfectly fine.
I mean,
Well,
there's more than maggots on the Aleutian Islands.
Right, it was just
Actually-
a joke about how ill-equipped and supplied the Japanese soldiers who were sent to those islands were.
This is fair.
I mean, the Aleutians are kind of pretty though.
They're
Well-
very beautiful by what I've seen.
I mean, honestly, I think Alaska itself is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a sucker for natural environments in general. I mean, the only place. I mean, like, I don't particularly care for deserts, but even it's like, ooh, pretty. I don't really. But rainforests, though, those scare me. Um, I mean, I don't agree with what the Brazilians are doing. Just burning them down, but I kind of empathize. I don't agree with it, but like,
Hmm. It's not
rainforests get weak.
okay, but I understand.
I understand. It like have you like there are so many. I think like of all like the animal species we like the science thinks we haven't discovered yet. Like I think most of them live in the rainforest, and I
Most of
kind
them live in the ocean.
Oh well, yeah, oh yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense. But of all the
The
land ones,
ocean-
and I don't want to find out what's in there. It's already
Well,
dark.
it's going to be mostly beetles, probably.
mostly.
Various species of arthropod.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna find like a Sasquatch or like chupacabra in the middle of the rainforest. So
Well,
pretty
you
much
say that, but my people and the Tlingit and the Tsimshian, all of the Southeast Alaska native peoples have stories about Sasquatch that predate contact.
I mean, I haven't hit it with my truck yet, so I'm pretty sure they don't exist.
I
Well,
understand that
okay.
reference.
Hey,
That
well,
was a good movie.
here's my thing with any sort of mythical folk. Well, anything that the Catholic Church says, I don't have to believe in. Like, I'm kind of agnostic about. But like, I mean, would it really be so crazy if? I mean, where there's so much smoke, there's got to be a fire, right? I mean, like like a lot of cultures from around the world have stories of dragons and fairies and giant creepy Russian Yeti, the killer lives thing. Yeah, that freaked me out as a child.
I always thought that the stories about dragons came from people finding dinosaur bones
That's
and
probably where they
fossils.
come from.
Well, I don't know. Here's my, and I'm gonna get a little intellectual for a moment. Well, I don't know if it's intellectual or just pseudo intellectual. Knowing me is probably just pseudo intellectual, but I'll let you be the judge of that. We have all of this technology now, and that's and that's great. I'm talking to a guy from Alaska, and I'm talking to a guy from Ohio and a guy from wherever Kaiser Bob's from. But
Illinois.
but I think. Oh, Illinois. Okay, so it's over 8, and we've got you. The Midwestern boys have you 3-1.
Yeah.
But
I like those odds.
but
You may have me outnumbered, gentlemen, but I have you outmatched.
What? Are you referring to
rosaries are part
weather?
of my
I
religion.
just came back from freezing cold winds. Don't try me, Aiden.
Okay, so
He's gonna
uh,
shoot us with his stolen cannons, and I'm gonna take a card from General Sherman's and burn his house down.
Try burning down an igloo, I dare you.
There's a will, there is a way, Hayden.
We're marching for
And
the
there's
sea,
enough
boys.
napalm to do it.
hey, we have ice that's so cold it can burn you. Why not ice that's so cold it burns? I'm just saying. Well, I mean, it's dry ice, really ice. At any rate, my point being, we have all this great technology, but I think that has kind of sucked the whimsy out of life. Us knowing. So, I mean, firstly, I think maybe as a like where you have that like bell curve where you know when you know nothing, you know nothing, but then when you know a little bit, you think you know everything, and then as you know more, you realize how much. What's
I
that
used,
called?
I used to know the name of that. I know what you're talking about, but I
It's
can't
something.
remember
It's
what it's
something's
called.
law or something. It's someone's law or something. But at any rate, I think as a society, we may be at the point where we know a little bit, so we think we know everything. Um, because it's just there's we have all this material stuff, and we're really great at the material, and figuring out supercomputers and how to. I mean, I don't pretend to understand how. I mean, the fact that we have glass, that's kind of impressive. The fact that we can. I mean, how do you get transparent things? Like that's just answer that one for me, scientist. But
Do you want an actual answer, or?
sure.
Because I don't have it, but I can figure it out thanks to the handy dandy internet.
Okay, well,
I'm
there we
sure
go.
it has
Another
to
one
do
of.
with something about a crystal lattice work or something. I don't know.
But
I'm
yeah,
a
I
nurse
know.
by
But like, if
profession,
if
not a
an atom,
scientist.
I mean, my question is, if an atom is a physical, tangible object, then then surely that tangible object must actually, make things. But at any rate, but I think that we've gotten so good at the material. All we're doing is focusing on the material, and we're. I mean, firstly, I mean, you can see that generally with the rise of atheism and all that nonsense. But it's just I think that we think we have all these explanations where we just kind of dismiss um the possibility that there are fairies in the hills and that there are dwarves and elves and all of this.
And that's probably why belief in aliens and UFOs is such a big thing, because we've basically taken all the magic and wonder out of the earth. The only place to still fantasize about is in the
Space.
stars. Yeah.
Actually, there is a theory there and is um that whatever these beings are, they're the like the fairies and the dwarves and the fauns and the aliens, they're all actually one thing. They just change depending on the human imagination at the time, and we don't really know what they would be and what their purpose in salvation would be, because apparent because the idea would be is that when a host is when transubstantiation happens and the bread and wine becomes the body, blood, and Christ, we can't, unless there's a Eucharistic miracle, we can't see the difference. We know it because we believe whatever the Son of Man hath told, what he has spoken, that for truth I hold. But these creatures, they would be able to see that. They would be able to know when a host has been consecrated and when a host hasn't been. And
Who promulgated this theory?
I don't know. I mean, I heard it from Charles Colomb, but so
Ah,
it's not really. I mean, I think there was a book called it was like uh Demonia or whatever. It sounds like demon, but it doesn't in Italian. It doesn't mean like demon in the sense that we think of. It just means other, you know, non-human intelligent
well, I
creatures.
remember reading up on Celtic folklore in particular, and in that particular folklore, they saw the Fae, the fairies, the fair folk. They saw them as angels that had stayed neutral in in the initial war in heaven between Satan and Michael.
Yeah, I think
And
I
so
heard.
they weren't cast down to hell because they weren't guilty of Satan's fall, but they couldn't remain in heaven either for not being loyalists to God. It's an interesting bit of folklore. That obviously it doesn't have the
That
backing or
that
support of
also
any official
explains why the
religion,
Fae.
but
That also explains why the Fae are fickle and depicted as not entirely good, but not entirely evil either.
Chaotic
exactly,
neutral. Well,
very much.
I mean, it's like I say, you know, I don't. I mean, unless I mean, it's not required for my salvation to believe in angels or fairies. I mean, you can believe one way or the other. I think.
Angels, yes.
Well, no, sorry, angels, angels. Sorry, I meant fairies and dwarves. Obviously, angels. Let me. Okay, misspeaking, misspeaking. Um, I'm not going to cut that. It's clear that I just misspoke. So, I just love it when when you're super scrupulous and then you misspeak and you're like,
Charles,
Yeah.
topic.
any, sorry, at any rate, you know, but I mean, so when it comes to all these things, I'm rather agnostic because unless I see fairies and you know, I mean, there's no sense in me believing one way or the other. But it is fun, and I think that as a society, we would do well not to just dismiss all this stuff out of hand because there's stuff out there. I do know that, and a lot there is stuff above nature, um, and whether or not all that falls within the realms of you know yeah, I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say. There is stuff I know for a fact there is stuff above nature, but I don't know if that's all there is. You know, but when it comes to you know the Catholic religion, because Saint which saint was it who thought that he saw a fawn and actually talked to one?
On
Can't
that,
remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
But
he
if you are watching this video on YouTube, feel free to tell us in the comments section.
You
it
know,
boosts engagement.
can we
You're not
talk
supposed
about
to
for a
say that.
second the difference between beings from folklore in Europe and beings from folklore in American cultures? Because, like in Europe, you have fairies, elves, fauns, dwarves, and then you get into North America, and what do we have? The Wendigo.
Well, to be fair, native folklore is full of a lot of helpful creatures that aren't just these scary monsters. It's
Oh,
just that the
hey,
zeitgeist of
quick
American
update.
culture is to draw upon only our scary stories.
Hey
I
guys.
always thought it was because natives had a very, very different concept of nature. Like European societies had developed and kind of started separating themselves from nature. And so they saw the woods as this magical, wonderful, mystical place. Whereas native cultures who actually lived in nature realized how horrible the natural world still is.
Eh, eh, so the problem with that kind of view is it oversimplifies a lot. You got to realize when you're talking about Native Americans, you're generalizing an entire continent's worth of people that
Right,
all lived
right.
radically different lifestyles. I mean, a lot of
And I
Native
apologize for
groups
that.
had no, don't. It's okay. It's a common mistake, and you're not the only one who makes it. The important thing to note, while a lot of native tribes had an emphasis on sustainability, not all of them did, and many of them were even separated from nature by living in cities, etc. Like, especially as you get further south, you would see native troops like the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incans. They lived in
Right,
settlements and
right.
they
Of
had
course.
cities and their own forms of agriculture. And you get and up further north, you have like my people. We lived in in stationary villages. We weren't like the plains natives who move around in tents and whatnot. We had buildings. We had cabins of logs, basically, all on our own.
I've seen descriptions and pictures of those houses. They're actually pretty impressive.
Yes, and but that's besides my main point. My main point is that our stories are just as wild and varied as you'll find in Europe. Like in European folklore, it's not like there wasn't horrible monsters that could exist. You have stories like Krampus in German folklore. You have dragons. You have goblins. You have
Baba Yaga.
exactly. You see all sorts of horrible monsters, but alongside them, there's the whimsy of the fairies and the fair folk, and you have the helpful creatures of the forest as well. In Native American folklore, a lot of the supernatural beings that exist, and again, this is generalizing over an entire continent, so this isn't accurate to everyone, but maybe it's better if I speak particularly to my people. We have stories about, for example, Raven, traditionally seen as one of the gods in Haida mythology, a very helpful spirit who was sent by the Great Spirit to guide people, but he also is a trickster. He likes to play pranks on people. The Tlingit have a story about how Raven stole the sun from the Sky Chief and put it into the sky for all of humanity to use, for example. But
That
then
kinda
also
reminds
our
me-
stories of Bigfoot, again, speaking to the Tlingit legends about Bigfoot, their story actually says that Bigfoot told them where to settle in order to have a good place to live, and that's how the city of Juneau was founded by the Tlingit.
You know, that story about the raven putting the sun in the sky kind of reminds me of the story of Prometheus stealing fire from Zeus to give it to man.
It is actually rather similar, and I hadn't thought about that connection before, but it is, in fact, a rather similar story. I wonder if there's some kind of anthropological significance to that. Maybe there's
Well, I
some
mean,
sort
you know,
of
it's similar, but it works in advance because Prometheus came down from the heavens to give fire to man rather than taking the sun up into the sky.
well, Raven stole it. Well,
Yeah.
it's actually kind of complicated and depends on who you listen to the myth from. That is
Yeah.
how myths work, unfortunately.
I don't know as much about folklore as I do, but what I do know is that whatever version you hear, there's like at least 15 different others.
I think the
Yes.
biggest problem in this instance, Aiden, is that European folklore is much better documented than native folklore.
Better
And
documented by Europeans at any rate.
right, yeah. And that kind of goes back to the whole settlement thing. Like the reason we don't know as much as we probably should about Aztec and Mayan folklore is because the Spanish burned it all.
I mean, that is, I do remember there were attempts to write it down, but I mean one thing that I will say, and this is something I was thinking about specifically with the Irish and how everyone was, all the modern people are lamenting the fact that we don't have any I guess canonical sources of the pre-Christian Ireland's folklore. And it's like, okay, imagine you're a monk and like this is before we had the printing press. Are you like your first thing you're going to copy is the Bible, obviously, and then and then if you have time to do anything else, you're probably going to write down like the important like mathematical books and the scientific books of the day, like what was that, like geometry book from ancient Greece that was basically like the core of math for like a millennia. You know, I actually think after the Bible, I think it's Euclid's. I think it was Euclid's geometry. It's actually the second most like printed book after the Bible because of how useful it was. Uh,
Well,
but but
and legends get obscured by
ti-
time all
anyways,
the time. Like, yeah, a bunch of Celtic myths got synchronized by Christianity in their original forms. Many of them are lost. But then you also had was the guy, he was a Roman writer, Roman poet. His name
Virgil.
began Ovid or Ovid, whatever. I forget how to pronounce it, but can someone help me out here?
I think it's Ovid. I think it's Ovid.
Yeah,
I don't know.
well,
2 years of Latin,
anyway,
and I don't know.
he's the guy who was responsible for rewriting all the Greek myths that actually turned Zeus from just being a guy who got around with the ladies into being this massive sexual predator, which in many canonical Greek myths prior would have been considered blasphemous.
It was interesting. I haven't finished reading. I guess I have 2 points. I haven't finished reading the Republic yet, but it's interesting that the characters in it, because I don't think it was. I think it was like a transcription of dialogues that happened, and but not like actual word for word. Like there wasn't a stenographer typing it, or writing it out, I guess. But he's like, I can't remember. Was it Plato or no? I think he was talking about Socrates, the guy before him. So Socrates is like, well, obviously the gods can't do anything wrong, right? And the guy's like, yeah, and well, then that means that all the stories that where the gods do something wrong is clearly false, and we shouldn't be teaching them. It's like, but don't all of the? I mean, not all of them, but like a good majority of like the Greek myths are involve at least one of the gods doing something. Like, I mean, all the gods having conflicting wills. I mean, at some point, every god is
Well,
in conflict with every other god.
well, I know one of the big things Pluto said about the Greek gods is if the Greek gods are as imperfect and human as they are, then why do we bother worshipping them?
He was so close to getting it. He should have just visited Israel. Anyways,
And I think that argument and that line of thinking was a big reason why Greece became one of the early bastions of Christianity because the practical philosophy behind the reasoning of monotheism was already there, and that there should be a virtuous God. They just needed to be introduced like,
introduced to it.
hey, here's a virtuous God.
Yeah. But my second
Hold on.
point was, as these, I mean, the tales. I mean, like a lot of these tales
Hmm.
do actually have good moral lessons or just entertaining. So
The
it makes
Greek
sense.
the Greeks love the idea of being humble. Almost all their tales are about hubris in some way.
Yeah, and
One of my favorite ancient Greek legends has to do with a farmer who had to carry his crop into the city to sell it, and it was a very heavy load on his wagon, and his mule was sickly and old, and so as he was riding into town, the wagon hit a rock, and the cart broke, and the donkey, exhausted, collapsed to the ground. And so the farmer was trying to get the donkey to come up, to get up off of its feet, and he started whipping it. And when that didn't work, after the wheel had been repaired, he cried out to the heavens, and he called out to Almighty Hercules, crying out, "Hercules," or I guess Heracles, because it was a Greek story. "Heracles, come help me carry my wagon into town." And Heracles appeared before him in a flash of thunder and said, "No, the gods help those who help themselves. You have not tried carrying it into town yourself, so I will not help you," and then disappeared. And that's the end of the story.
It's like that one meme with the mighty eagle where it just zooms up to his face and he just goes, no.
no. Yeah, but
Oh,
but I mean, my point being is that a lot of these stories do have good moral lessons. So it would make sense to just remove the pagan elements and then just Christianize the story, because I mean, yes, I mean, I mean, yes, it's good from a modern scholarly perspective. Obviously, you would want all these different stories in their original form, but from a practical standpoint, there from a practical standpoint, it would have just made sense to synthesize them, and then obviously with the caveat like, hey, these are just stories, they didn't actually happen, guys. But just bring them in. I mean, if you're a monk, you're not gonna have you have a lot of other uh you're not. I mean the Greek. I mean the thing is that this really would have happened with a lot of cultures that didn't have a written language. Like we don't like our biggest source for Norse mythology is the Prose Edda, which is
And
which was written by a Catholic. So
it was written by a Catholic Icelander 500 years after the Viking Age ended.
yeah, a Catholic, and who was also apparently trying to do a political message. So
Well,
we know
that
how.
was that was the thing with Ovid too. The reason he reread all the Greek myths to make like Zeus a sleazy perv and everything was because he was trying to make a message about the state of Roman politics.
Well, literally every story we have about the Viking gods, about the gods of the Norse people, literally every single story that we have from them is copied down by Catholic monks.
Yeah. I don't know how Norse
And
pagans.
the entire story of Ragnarok was made up by Catholics in order to syncretize the Nordic religion with
You
Catholicism.
hear that? You hear that, neo-pagans? Eat your heart out. You
Or
only
better yet,
exist
convert.
because
Pagan,
we
you-
let you.
Or better yet, convert.
Yeah, convert.
But
I mean,
first,
if you look at the entire
Different.
story of Ragnarok, it ends with one god, one man and one woman, and the tree of life. Sounds familiar to me, folks.
Sounds
I also,
peculiar.
I mean, it would be funny if that actually was the shoot, what do you call it? That actually was the myth before the Christian showed up, and then the Christian monk showed up, and then like read out Genesis, and everyone was like, you know, I don't know, but
Ragnarok over, and then suddenly millions and millions of Vikings get mad because they're like, dang it, Ragnarok already happened and I missed it.
yeah, but I don't know, but
Born
yeah,
too late to, or born too early to go explore the new world. Born too late to join in Ragnarok.
Born too late to die for the glory of Odin. Again.
I can imagine they walk right back to their huts with their heads down and they're just weakly carrying their axes. They walk inside and go, "Honey, I'm sorry, but we missed Ragnarok."
Only by
I'm
about,
saved
800 years.
Time to shave the beard. I don't know. Learn how to farm.
yeah, but I mean, it is, of course, obviously, I don't know. I mean, I mean, I like all these folk tales, but at the same time, I'm glad that I have the true religion. I mean, Catholicism. I mean, like the Christianity and like and then before Judaism, it was always just different. I mean, the idea of firstly, obviously, the whole monotheism angle, but then it's just the fact that like all of the gods and the different religions sort of seemed human in the sense that they had conflicting wills with each other. You think that if you had a bunch of entities that were allegedly perfect, they would all be in perfect
Well,
accord with one another.
I think the big difference is with monotheism, the deity has to be something greater than everything, greater than the universe. Whereas with polytheism, the deities were seen as aspects of nature and aspects of human behavior. So the
Well,
reason that the gods were imperfect was because they're reflections of ourselves in fantastical ways.
but that doesn't follow because because in all of these mythologies we came after them. So how could they be reflections of something that didn't exist?
I'm not saying it made sense.
I know, but
I
yeah,
mean, one could say that if we want to go biblical, like God made us in their image, perhaps they thought they were made in their God's image too.
I don't know. I mean, it's just that I don't know. It's just I don't. There's something about the prospect of a whole lot of deities running around who are of less than moral repute. There's something about that that just doesn't seem to line up with reality. I mean, I don't know. It's
I think
and
we
then
can
also
successfully check off a major topic goes by without talking about monarchy once on the Monarchist Minute bingo sheet.
oh dang it. Uh,
Oh, cool!
well,
I win a
can
new
we talk?
car.
Okay, what does Aiden? Since you would know, I think, what exactly does the phrase "monarchy of the father" mean?
Ooh, that is a long and complicated topic, which would be in the better purview of a theologian.
Okay, well, because I've been trying to understand that
It,
one myself.
it is a particular contention that the Orthodox have with the Catholic interpretation of the procession of the Son. Namely, they believe that it violates the monarchy of the Father. Basically, the monarchy of the Father holds that God the Father, as creator of everything, is necessarily... And I don't understand this perfectly myself, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't get this perfectly correct. But as I understand it, it is a matter of God the Father being superior to the other two aspects of the Trinity,
But that goes against.
as the creator of all, and as the creator of those two aspects of the Trinity.
But but the Athanasian Creed says uncreated the Father, uncreated the Son, uncreated the Holy Spirit. I don't.
It again, I'm
Yeah.
not the best versed in this fact either. All I know is the complaint about the monarchy of the Father is usually brought up whenever someone brings up the filioque.
Orthobros, you need to work on that. Okay.
Feel free
You
to put
know,
that
I
in our
just,
comment section too.
I just love Christianity so much. The one thing we have separating us from the other Abrahamic faiths, the one thing that makes us unique is the Trinity, and nobody can agree with how it's supposed to work.
Well, no, I mean, well, firstly, the Jews had an apparently the Jews did have a notion of the Trinity, except that like after Judaism ceased to be a functional religion, I guess, or I mean, after Judaism's purpose, essentially after the Jews got cut off from the tree because of their obstinance, and Judaism eventually became what it was now. They kind of lost that over the years. I've heard, and I don't know how true it is, but apparently that Judaism in its current form is actually like a product of like the 3rd or 4th century, and then it just kind of, because like the Judaism today has really nothing to do with since they don't really have the temple anymore, and as Julian the Apostate so excellently demonstrated, trying to build another one probably wouldn't go over well.
No.
But yeah, there's no the whole sacrificial element has been taken out. So how are the Jews supposed to, in their understanding, fill the balance? I mean, because they're not. I mean, they can't fulfill the law
Yeah.
anymore. So, and there's a lot
And
of. I mean, obviously, during the Babylonian exile, they couldn't fulfill the law, but they at least tried to keep the precepts of the law that they could fulfill. Which that's one thing I also don't understand. Okay, so you have like the Orthodox Jews who actually tried to fulfill the law as it is written to the best of their ability. Okay, it's like, okay, I understand that, but at the same time, get with the program, please. It's been 2,000 years. Um, but uh, but then you have like Jewish people who claim to be Jewish, but they don't follow like the kosher rules, and like they go like, I don't like,
well,
guys, what are you doing?
there's Judaism, the religion, and then there's Jewish as a cultural identity, and the cultural identity coexists, but at the same time is separate from the religion. Which is why a lot of times when talking about that, I refer to the Jewish people as Hebrews instead of just referring to them as Jews in a religious context.
Yeah, I just
If that makes sense.
yeah, it's I don't know.
You know
I mean,
how Moses makes his coffee every morning?
He brews it.
He brews it.
hey,
Okay.
why were hey? Do you know how you tell the Pharisees from the Sadducees? The Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection of the body. That's why they were Sadducee.
Aha.
Ah.
And it, so we got from
In the
oh,
end, the Sadducees won because all the Pharisees died when the temple got burned down, but all the Sadducees is where Rabbinic Judaism comes from.
yeah, and the Sadducees are basically I guess they were kind of like the pre-Christian version of heretics because they didn't because the resurrection.
That's gonna be a very loaded topic, which should get us in a lot of trouble
Yeah,
if we go down too
yeah.
far.
Okay, fine.
I
But I
recommend
will say
moving
that
on
the
to our next
moving
topic.
on.
okay, I will just say that the resurrection of the body is biblical. Look at
Yes.
anyways.
Yeah, moving
So,
on.
well, Old Testament biblical obviously because I don't think the anyways. So,
Well, I guess that means I can't ask what is your opinion on Messianic Jews.
That would be a very good idea
you can
not
ask
to
me
ask.
after
That's
the, you can
another
ask me after.
thing.
Okay, so our next topic. Will, tell me about Ohio.
Well, yet another major industrial accident has happened, and it's made my state a place of environmental contention. Because setting a river on fire wasn't enough, Norfolk Southern somehow crashed a train, and now everyone's panicking because toxic chemicals spilled out on the ground. Everyone's acting like this is the next Chernobyl. I believe it's just another Tuesday, and I'm going to tell you why.
Before you tell us why, real quick, how many more
Wait,
frogs
what?
have turned gay?
No, the frogs have not turned gay, but apparently 45,000 animals have died from water contamination, but they're only aquatic animals. So honestly, that's to be expected. And you know, this is also coming from a state whose Surgeon General has to put a warning on fish that come out of Lake Erie because years of industrial waste has made their mercury levels unnaturally high. So yes, eating perch or any fish out of Lake Erie actually comes with a Surgeon General warning because you're at above average risk for getting mercury poisoning from consuming the fish.
Thanks, Chicago.
So this comes back to my main point. When it comes to industrial and chemical accidents in Ohio, this is Tuesday. I mean, this isn't even the worst thing that happened. Back in the 60s and 70s, we set the Cuyahoga River on fire in Cleveland because years and years of runoff from steel plants turned the river into combustible sludge. And so the water literally caught fire. Okay, so
that's
to
how
get
you would
on a
burn down
more
my igloo. Noted.
yeah, so that's how like I said, it's not an if, it's a how. Basically, okay, so to not rant, to get back on the topic, basically what happened was there's this train, it was running through town of East Palestine, Ohio, and it was carrying a chemical, vinyl chloride, I think it was. Anyway, apparently one of the wheel bearings overheated and the train derailed. The train conductors did everything they could to prevent the train from becoming a disastrous derailment. They were driving slower than they had to. They were slowing to a stop. They were getting ready to make the emergency stop and, crap happens. And I'd say part of the problem is the fact that our train fleet and everything is 50 some years old, and we haven't updated any of our rail infrastructure since the 70s. But I digress. So what happened was the vinyl chloride, which was in pressurized tanks, tipped over and ruptured, spilling out into the ground, and since it was pressurized, vinyl chloride in a room temperature is a gas. So it started flash boiling, and that caused the risk for explosion. So the rail company and the emergency responders did the only thing they could do, which was try to burn it off because it is flammable. But it creates a lot of black smoke and smog and phosphine gas, as well as hydrochloride, which when it enters in the atmosphere and mixes with water becomes hydrochloric acid. Yeah, it started to make people panic. because nobody like responds well to a giant black cloud of smoke and toxic gas. But here's my thing, and this is going to be a big thing coming from me because I do not trust the government, and this is going to be very, very humbling for me to say. But I don't think the government's done anything wrong in this instance whatsoever. Some people have been saying the government hasn't been overly transparent, and they've been downplaying the incident. Well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do when a disaster happens. When you see a paramedic walk up to somebody who's just got their leg blown off, what do you want to hear the paramedic say? Oh, wow, that's really bad. Or do you want to hear the paramedic say, you're going to be fine? Like, Aiden, you work at a hospital. You know how it is. You don't say something that's going to stress out someone in an emergency even more.
But at the same time, you also don't lie to a patient ever.
True.
So, in the practice of medicine, it is 100% illegal to lie to your patient to keep them calm. And we saw at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, I know I'm going to bring the COVID pandemic up, we saw a lot of downplaying by the authorities about what was necessary to do in order to protect yourselves. Like we saw Dr. Fauci saying, oh, you don't need masks in the initial months of the pandemic, knowing that it was going to cause a lot of people to start going out and buying masks, which in his eyes would lead to a worse outcome in the long run, even though he knew he was eventually going to have to order people to use masks instead. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing to keep from the public, especially if you're going to outright lie to them. I don't think that the government should be in the business of doing that on a regular basis.
That's
Also,
understandable.
at the same time, several officials were telling the people, yeah, it's fine. You could drink the water, and then refuse to drink the water themselves, so...
Flint,
I
Michigan
mean, I've
moment.
heard mixed reports about that, but considering how well treated most water is when it comes to cities, I'd say it's probably fine to drink the water.
Don't
But
drink.
Don't drink it.
but
I will
one of the
reiterate
big
that this
things-
podcast is not in any way to be taken as medical advice. We are not
Right.
medical professionals. This is
But I mean, the water is still probably safer than Flint.
I resent that implication.
Of course you do, Charles. Of course you do.
But
I
anyway,
think our water is the best in the city.
But anyway, back to it. The amount of panic and hypochondriaism that has come from this disaster is just mind-numbing to me. People are literally playing this off as the next Chernobyl, basically. I saw someone, like, when I'm running the Twitter for Moa, I see tons and tons of people, like, spreading panic, just coming up with, like, strange, outlandish ways how this is going to be some global spanning disaster. And I saw someone take a map of the US and put 2 circles on it, literally with MS Paint. That was the quality of it. And
I love
want to
MS
know
Paint.
what he said?
What?
He said the chemicals must be reaching Massachusetts because somebody is reporting nausea and vomiting, and that's some of the symptoms of exposure. Nausea and vomiting. We are in the middle of February. It is flu season. Of course, people are having nausea and vomiting.
It's not like those are the most generic symptoms that can ever exist that could be applied to just about
Exactly.
anything you can catch.
And I saw someone who claimed to be a chemical engineer. I don't know how many chemical engineers make fancy announcements on TikTok instead of actual official scientific
Probably the same
journals
number
and
of people in
stuff.
my profession who go dancing on TikTok.
Yeah, there's
Right,
also
right, right.
that.
But anyway, they went on a rant about how chlorine hydrator, I forget the chemical name, is going to make hydrochloric acid. And I'm thinking, it's like, hydrochloric acid in the air. You mean acid rain? Yeah, like that's been anything new since the 70s. And it just, like, am I going to say that something bad happened in East Palestine? Of course something bad happened. If it wasn't bad, the EPA wouldn't be there trying to clean it up. am I gonna act like it's apocalyptic? Of course not. Same.
What do you think of the fact that that the Trumpster went there?
Oh yeah,
I think a smart campaign planning on his part, but that's all I'm going to recognize it as.
yeah. Also, that whole trip also caused stupidity from the left because Ed and Brian Kazenstein, they're both liberals, tried to spin this up as Trump's fault and saying, "Hey, remember that time when he didn't send supplies over to Puerto Rico?" And
He
then
did send
yeah,
supplies to
and then
Puerto Rico.
they got and then they got instantly ratioed because everyone kept showing news reports that he did send the supplies, but the officials
the supplies
kept them.
did get sent, but the Puerto Rican government is just so incompetent.
Yeah.
I would like to point out, I was reading an article that was talking about the cause of the train derailment in the first place, and there's apparently some links between it and some of the deregulation that happened under Trump's administration. So it is possible that Trump is at least partly to blame for this as well.
And that's true.
Of course, at the same time,
Well-
it's not like the news isn't stretching for any chance to blame Trump for the problems of this current administration.
Yeah.
If
Also,
Star
fair.
Wars The Clone Wars has taught me anything, it's that deregulation is always scary, and we should never do it.
also,
Especially if it's the banks.
Ah, yes, because everyone knows that companies just absolutely want to sacrifice the safety of their transportation.
yeah. Also,
We all know that they would never, ever try to make sure that their trains can actually move safely if the government isn't telling them to.
yeah.
Yes, and that the company isn't going to try to make money by making sure that they have good, reliable service.
Also,
Okay, that's about
they
I'm
will
going to
also
get
try
yanked
and-
for a while.
But they'll also try and save money by cutting corners and red tape.
yeah.
This
I
is
just
true.
wanna
Have you
point-
seen a modern American diesel locomotive? They have all the corners.
Yeah.
I mean, I love
Okay.
our old reliable electro diesel engines, but man, those things are going on 70 years old. We really need to upgrade our fleet.
Yes.
I just kind of want to go back to
Nuclear
roadblocks.
powered trains, anyone?
That's a little
I just watched.
much.
I'm if you could make it work, sure. Apparently,
Never need to refuel them.
I mean,
I mean-
apparently the Russians claim they've been working on it since the 1950s, which I mean,
Well, yeah,
I-
everyone was working on nuclear everything in the 50s.
I
yeah,
mean,
but
I
the Russians still claim to be working on it though.
I was trying to think of a concept of a turbine engine on a locomotive and make a jet-powered freight train.
There
But
actually
That sounds
were
fast.
there actually were steam powered steam turbine locomotives, but they never really took off.
Well, isn't the whole point of a very good one, by the way? Isn't the whole point of a train to operate via steam power? And isn't the whole point of a nuclear reactor to make really, really hot water
You
that
know,
turns into steam?
there was
Like-
a
Like, I've heard a
green
nuclear
petrol-
reactor described as essentially just a really, really powerful way to boil water to make power before.
I know. There was a 4chan thread about that a while
Oh,
back.
is it from 4chan? Oh.
Yeah, and it's like we came up with the ability to split an atom, and what do we use it to do? Boil water.
Boil water.
Principles, but it seems kind of trivial.
Yeah, I do like
I
I have
really
nothing
want
to
to.
say.
I really want to see us actually start investing money in liquid salt reactors because those are cool and they're actually a lot safer than steam reactors because they're not required to be under pressure in order to work. In order to keep water at that high of temperatures in a reactor, it has to be under immense pressure. Liquid salt wouldn't need to be under immense pressure.
Under pressure.
Copyright.
No. Oh yeah, unfortunately. I'm no
It's
David Bowie.
okay. Hey, don't worry about it. Freddie Mercury's dead. He can't sue us.
But his
Yeah, but his
bandmates
label
can.
Well, his family probably doesn't have the rights. It's probably just a label at this point. Well, that's not necessarily true. But
In
I
any
mean,
case,
but in any case, but no, in case it wasn't clear, I actually wasn't joking. There actually were steam turbine locomotives, which they're kind of ugly. I'm not gonna lie. Steam turbine locomotives don't look as good as the conventional steam locomotives. But I would like to have. But I would like to. I don't think any exist anymore. They all were kind of scrapped as failures. But I would like to hear one because, like, I know because we all know what a conventional steam locomotive sounds like. Chugga 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 chugga. But I would like to hear what one of those steam turbine locomotives sounds like.
I imagine it would be very noisy because turbine engines are notoriously noisy.
Yeah, but I mean, give me a. I mean, I'm sure there has to be a sound on film recording somewhere, right? Like, there has to be. Kaiser Bob, do the research. Anyways, no.
What?
Look up, see if there are any sound recordings of steam turbine locomotives.
I'm on.
All right. So it's nice to delegate. Maybe I should have unlimited power. No.
I will remind you that delegation only transfers the task itself. The responsibility for making sure the task is actually done still belongs to the person who does the delegation.
Dang it. Okay. So, do we have anything else to say about Ohio?
Everyone remain calm. This isn't the worst environmental disaster that's ever happened in the state. It'll be over soon. If you're worried about the stuff being in the soil, it'll be fine because my neighborhood is like twice over the legal limit for arsenic and I have yet to die.
Arsenic is a slow killer.
But yeah, that's actually a legitimate problem in my neighborhood on my side of town. The steel mill was so poorly ran and regulated for years that all the soil on my side of town is like twice over the legal limit for arsenic.
All right. So is that all we had to say about Ohio?
Yeah, pretty much.
I believe so.
Rest in peace,
All right.
Pete Buttigieg's presidential career.
What happened?
As if he ever had one.
That's true.
Oh, right. The secretary. Oh, right. He's the Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Secretary. It took me a minute to. I would not want people. Well, in fairness, I wouldn't want any member of the Democratic Party to be president.
Yeah, but of all people,
but
they went with Pothole Pete.
And probably like out of all the Republicans, probably only like a quarter of them are tolerable too. So
Yeah, I don't. Well, in fairness, when it's kind of hard to find a good president when you don't even think the job of president should exist.
True.
I'm
See,
still
we
a
can
little.
talk about monarchism sometimes.
I'm still a little salty Yang didn't win the primary in 2020, not gonna lie.
Did you want your Yang bucks?
I wanted my Yang Bucks. I still have the bumper sticker on the back of my car, and I kind of don't want to take it off out of nostalgia. But also because it's the same color as the paint and it blends in perfectly, so I forget it's there.
This is why I still see people with George Bush stickers on their car. Noted.
I wonder, is there like a way to like look up the average age of a registered vehicle per state? Like, because like I know Michigan has the highest percentage of like made in America cars, but
That's a good question that we can talk about another time.
yeah. Okay, so we're all good with Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kaiser Bob, it's a very interesting video you sent me, but that's the whistle, not the actual engine.
Yeah,
or
I know.
locomotion.
I'm trying my
sorry,
best here,
specify.
but I don't think there's any recording of the turbine.
Maybe
I'll look
maybe
again, and
steam
if
turbine.
I find it, then I'll send you it.
Okay, maybe steam turbine was just a conspiracy by the government, and there was no steam turbine.
What if the steam turbines was the friends we made along the way?
That'd be some pretty noisy friends. The quiet kid, the diesel electric, the average kid, the diesel, the obnoxious kid, the steam locomotive, the super obnoxious kid. Okay, so our last topic, as I readjust the timestamp, today is the Friday after Ash Wednesday in Lent, which means no meat for you, but no meat for me, no meat for you. Okay. Um.
You,
Let's see.
is
So what
this
are we?
Catholic nonsense I'm too Protestant to
No,
understand?
that's
Yes.
the Duff. That's the Duff beer for me, Duff beer for you song from The Simpsons.
I
But
was just trying to be funny because, I had pulled pork and brisket for lunch today.
aw, that's not very good. But in fairness, you see, I kind of had this problem. You see, I already don't eat meat on Fridays, so I'm trying to figure out what I want to do for Fridays, and I kind of settled on, well, maybe I'll just like not have fish today. But then Mom had already gotten out the fish sticks, so you can't really put them back in the bag once you get them out. And then uh, and then plus, I don't think she'd like me just like skipping a meal. So I got to figure out what I'm gonna do extra food wise for Fridays, because I already don't eat meat on Friday. Also, maybe it's just me, but not eating meat on Fridays is not really that much of an inconvenience. I mean,
It is kind of for me because getting quality seafood is pricey.
it's called the fillet of fish on the McDonald's app. Just
I
Did
don't
you just
eat
pronounce
at
fillet as fillet?
McDonald's.
yes, I intentionally mispronounced the word because it sounds funny.
Also, what is this about? What is this about seafood being expensive? Is this a landlocked thing that I'm too coastal to understand?
Yes,
My
yes,
brother
yes.
in
And
Christ,
we
take
get
a
it.
fishing. My brother in
You
Christ,
don't
take a
have
fishing
to
pole
do
and
this.
throw it in the ocean. You will catch
You live in
something.
the land of salmon and giant crabs. Don't rub it in.
And also halibut. We've got 800-pound halibut too. Don't knock our halibut.
I already told you all the fish that comes out of my state comes with an advisory warning from my Surgeon General.
Then
So I
move to
don't
my
get
state. You can
mercury
have all the
poisoning.
fish you can want.
Girls,
Yeah, but
you're
your
both
state
pretty.
gets
Can
dark.
I go home now?
Well, not before we all say what we gave up for Lent. So, Bob.
Okay, as Kaiser of this establishment, I would like to say that for this Lent, I have given up having soda. It's a habit
Respectable.
Yep.
It's called pop, you traitor.
I'm sorry, but I had to say it.
No, I
The
thought
one
it was.
thing
I
to
thought it
keep-
was sody pop.
So
The
I
one
won't say
thing,
it,
okay,
but
that's just like a
you
halfway
see-
house like commie thing.
Yeah.
That's like commie compromise.
Mommy,
I
compromise.
won't say who, but let's just say I had an anonymous payment of $5 if I said soda instead of pop. So $5 were worth it.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, the only thing that is keeping all-out war breaking out between Michigan and Ohio is the fact that we both agree it's pronounced pop.
Yeah, it is pop. It is pop. I
Yes,
will smack you if you pronounce it otherwise.
yes. And anyone who says soda pop is just trying to compromise when this is one of those issues
There
you can't
is
compromise
no
on.
compromise. It is pop.
Okay, so...
What they doing down there, eh?
Eh?
I don't know. Ohio
okay.
doesn't exist according to Illinoisans.
Yeah, but wanna know what else doesn't
The
exist?
Illinoising people.
Wanna know what else doesn't exist? A safe place in Chicago.
You know what else doesn't exist?
Fair
Oh,
point.
You know what else doesn't exist? The east
Clean
side of
air
Chicago.
anywhere in the South. That's what doesn't exist. None of y'all have clean air, and apparently you don't have good fish either.
Hey, our fillet of fish are the best fillet of fish in the entire country. Actually,
I'm sure they are.
so
And they totally aren't made of trout or something like that.
Hey,
I don't know.
don't
Actually,
knock
here's
the
the thing.
catfish until you try it. Catfish is good.
I actually do like catfish.
Okay, so
But
you
Louisiana
will
makes
not
it better
get
than you
a
do in Ohio.
podcast roll if you
I
call
don't dispute that.
Pop Coke.
You know, I'm just gonna say this real quick. Ohio doesn't actually have any like unique food tastes or anything. Like you have the Philly cheesesteak in Pennsylvania, you got Cajun food in Louisiana. Ohio doesn't actually have like any strange token foods. Except for maybe sausage, because there was a ton of Germans who settled here and we were very famous for our pork industries.
But Deutschland.
Forever. There's a
I
town.
mean,
There's a town north of me. It's called Bucyrus, and they still have a bratwurst festival.
Yeah, but like if you think about it, a lot of states don't have their own thing. Like, yeah, you have some like Maine, they have their lobster. Alaska, we have our salmon. You know, Washington, the heck does Washington have? I guess they have those little chocolate things. Those are actually pretty.
I mean, Michigan has
Washington
Detroit-style conies.
Well, hang on
But
a
like,
second.
think of like Oklahoma. What does Oklahoma have?
Well,
A
now that I think
wide
about it,
open range.
now that I think about
Where the
it,
deer and
Ohio
the
has
antelope
Buckeyes.
We're seldom misheard.
For those of you who don't know, Buckeyes are bowls of peanut butter dipped in chocolate.
Okay.
Oh,
They're
that sounds
actually-
pretty good.
They're actually pretty good. Yeah, they're basically homemade Reese's cups.
Reese's.
Or are
okay,
Reese's
so-
cups just industrially made? Whatever those things are called. Buckeyes.
Okay, so Kaiser Bob, is there anything else you're giving up for Lent?
Other than soda. I said what I said. The anonymous donation may or may not have been me.
Oh, well, okay. If I acknowledge Ohio as also one of the last beacons of civilization, will you help me fight this menace?
We're fighting Kaiser Bob or Aiden. Sorry,
I think we're fighting both, and I think we're surrounded.
I will.
It's okay. Aiden's far away. He won't get us, so we can beat the snot out of Kaiser Bob while he's
unless
flying.
you can
in.
find me.
Look,
You underestimate the range of my snowball throw.
hey, Michigan does have a ballistic iron ore reserve. Anyway,
my neighbor may or may not.
Oh,
be
and speaking
upset,
of
so just saying.
speaking of war, we would like to wish Russia happy 1-year anniversary of its 3-day military operation in Ukraine.
Boy, here we go.
oh, I was just
We were
gonna
save
say
that for the next
whoever's gonna win.
podcast, Will, thanks.
Yeah, whoever's gonna win that, all I'll just say is whoever's gonna win the war, can you get on with it,
Yeah.
so the rest of us can like get on
Can
with
I
our
have my
lives, and
money
the
back?
civilians from both Russia and Ukraine can start rebuilding. Thanks. Anyways, yeah. So I guess we didn't get to answer the question. Kaiser Bob, was there anything else you were giving up for Lent?
I'm also giving up chocolate, so.
For me, last year I gave up pop, but that kind of got me in trouble with grandmother, because grandmother's like, eat, drink, be merry. So this Lent I was like, okay, I'll have to take it back a notch, but I'm still not going to be like, drinking pop every day of the week. But I have given up mocha frappes because mocha frappe is a passion of mine. It's not a it's not a drink, it's a way of life. But and then let's see, and then so basically I'm functionally limiting myself to having a sugary drink like once a week at grandmother's, but it's not technically part of the rules. And then for prayer, I've added an extra minute of silent prayer I'm trying to work up to 15 minutes a day. So like for Advent, I went from 5 to 6, and then I am now going from like 6 to 7, and I'm probably not gonna go back to 6 after Lent's over. And then for almsgiving, because that's also something you're supposed to do, I have a giant bag of change, and I really like change, but Mom probably wouldn't like it if I just started taking out the envelope, especially since I don't have a checking book. Sadness. So that's my thing. There's also, and that includes 3 $1 coins, and I really like $1 coins, so it hurts more than just, well, it doesn't hurt, but yeah. But I still feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel sad. Okay, Will, are you?
All right.
Are you required to give up something for Lent? Is that how that works?
Yeah, Protestants, yeah, you're still supposed to give something up for Lent. We just don't do the whole no meat on Fridays thing, but we're still expected to like give up something personal or meaningful or something we find enjoyable. For my example, I gave up Japanese media because for those who are already in the server, you probably know I'm a bit of a weeb. Those of you who don't, yeah, I'm kind of a weeb, I'll admit it. So yeah, I gave up Japanese media for Lent.
Yeah, much to
Much to what?
I I was gonna say something, but then I got distracted by drawing my fictional island. Oh, I also can't look like go shopping for model locomotives. That's a big problem of mine. And I kind of realized how stupid it, and like I only just realized how stupid doing that is. It's like if you're not actually assigning yourself a budget and saying you can buy something, then what's the point of just staring at something, being like, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. Especially if it's from a company with moral issues like Hornby, because it's like, Hornby, you make a lot of good stuff, but at the same time, could you not support the
What?
gay
Who's
marriage?
Hornby? Who's
Hornby. Okay, so
Hornby?
Okay, well, really, Hornby is try. Okay, you know how like sometimes one company will like buy another company, but then that company will absorb the identity of the company it bought.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, really, Hornby is trying, and then Hornby bought. Okay, so you
Okay,
had it.
that
Okay,
doesn't tell me what I
basically,
wanted. That
okay,
doesn't
it's a
tell me what I
model
wanted to
railway company.
know.
It's a British model railway
All
company.
right, thank you.
Okay, so but really, it's trying, but no one cares. Um, I mean,
I
I
bet
guess that's
Rick
probably
Astley really suffers with Lent.
who suffers with Lent.
Rick Astley.
Oh.
Never gonna diss me.
uh, poor
Give
Rick.
something up, Rick. You
No,
have to.
I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
even
he's
the
just saying
entirety
he's
of
never going to give
Lent.
you up for. I mean, the things you never want to give up are the things that you got to give up the most. You got to let them down and search for deeper spiritual. Anyways, Aiden, what are Will? I forgot. Like, what are you giving up for Lent?
He said
Oh, he
anime.
said it. He said it. Sorry. Okay, Aiden, what are you? What are you giving
Not
up
a
for Lent?
drop of alcohol save for the blood of Christ shall touch my lips for 40 days.
You know, I had a
You
I
made
had
that sound much cooler than it should have.
I'm really good
Well,
at making things sound cool.
yeah. I like I like people. I can make things sound cool. I just choose not to. I just choose to sound like a socially inept moron when I'm doing this show. uh, yeah. Actually, funny story. So my ninth grade theology teacher, Mr. Somebody, who became Deacon Somebody in like 10th grade, but I didn't have him in 10th grade, but he was my 11th grade AP Euro teacher and 12th grade principal. Anyways, his dad would give up cigarettes for every Lent, and by like the second week, everyone was begging him to start smoking again because he would just be so irritable. It was, uh, don't do nicotine, folks. Um, let's see. Uh, So we've exhausted the topic list. Yeah.
Sounds like
Uh,
it.
I think that's everything.
Thank
all
you,
right, and I
gentlemen,
only
and ladies for tuning in to Monarchist Minute.
hold on. We have to
Yeah,
do
we
the
gotta do the
outro,
outro.
and I
That's the
only.
start of the outro.
Right.
Oh, well, actually, and I only have to remove 2 things,
Yay,
Nice.
that's
and both of
new
them are
right there.
yours.
Wait, mine?
Yes.
We'll talk about this after the podcast.
Yes. Okay. So.
Alright.
Okay. So, because it's Lent, before we get into the actual outro proper, we're gonna be expanding the prayers we say, in order to better reflect this season of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. But now we can get. So it's gonna be in Our Father, Hail Mary, and a Glory Be. Uh, So, with that all being said, if you would like to join us live for Monarchist Minute and see these glorious ramblings, then you can join us by clicking the link in the description.
Hello. Sorry, I'm back.
There we go. If you would like to see Twitter in its, I don't want to say glory, in its
train wreck.
Twitterness, and it's, I mean, hey, if there's one thing that I do
If
like
you
about
wish to
Twitter,
become an absolute twit like the rest of us, the link is in the description below.
Below.
Oh, that's okay. If you would like to see a very inactive Gab, then you can.
I
I mean,
wonder whose
hey,
fault
in
that
fairness,
is.
okay. I'm gonna place the blame solely on my fellow council members, on my fellow councilmen, because I said, hey, like everyone text me to make sure that I've posted something today, and no one's done it. But if you would like to see a Gab where nothing
I'm
happens,
busy trying to keep Twitter afloat. I'm sorry.
I don't
What
Alright,
happened
care.
to you
moving
just
on.
copying whatever I posted
Yet
on
another
Twitter?
thing we have to cut out, I
Alright.
guess.
Gap
No,
link is
it's
in the
fine. This makes the
below.
outro feel more complete, and like we're all about to get drunk, except for you. Okay,
Uh,
but if you would like to do
I
that,
was
Gab,
about to say.
you can do that by clicking it in the link
Description
in the
below.
description below, and also let me remind everyone I'm under 21, so I can't legally get drunk yet. And if you would like
If
to
the
see an
police
equally
don't
inactive,
know, won't hurt them.
if you would like to see an equally inactive Instagram, then you can do that by clicking
Link.
the link
Description
in the
below.
description
Description
below.
below.
And if you would like to see our Weebly-tastic website that may or may not be getting replaced with a more not Weebly website at some point, then you can join us on that website by clicking the link in the
In the
description below.
description below.
And now it is time to conclude in prayer. Sorry, I forgot to type the things. Okay, I might have to cut that awkward gap of silence. Okay,
Get it together. We're at the finish line.
but we haven't crossed it yet. All right, so there's still time for me to stumble and trip and crawl and touch my hand on the line. Do you have to cross it, or do you just have to reach? Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, and is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. All right, so until next time, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Now we are over the finish line.